It's The Journey with drug and alcohol attorney Mark G. Astor.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Journey, second show of 2019. I'm very excited to have as a guest of mine, Randy Anderson. And Randy and I met through Facebook. And what caught my attention was really just the very great work that Randy was doing. And I always like to highlight people who are trying to make a difference, because at the end of the day, I know from my perspective, when I was an unhappy lawyer, and I figured out that the reason I was unhappy was because I wasn't helping anybody. So, I mean, I applaud the work that you're doing, and I thank you very much for taking time to be with us. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for inviting me, really.
So,
That's awesome.
I know that you are in Minnesota, right?
Yep, you bet.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think when I first spoke to you, I said, are you in the Midwest? And you said, yeah, I'm in Minnesota. And I remembered, I think I shared with you the fact that I went to school up in Michigan, and how much I don't miss those Midwest winters. Yeah.
We've had a pretty mild winter here so far, so I don't complain anyways, but we can't complain too much, I don't think. But
yeah, I always know when it's going to get cold down here in Florida, because it gets cold up north, and so I know if you guys get a big snow blast, we'll start getting some cold air coming down here, which we love, because during the summer here it's just brutal. Anyway, let's talk about what's going on with you, because one of the things that at least it's been evident to me is that we are sort of in the middle of a national epidemic, right? I mean, I know we've talked a lot about what's been going on here in South Florida, and you know, especially with our task force, you know, closing down and arresting a lot of people down here who are in the treatment industry, but I'm presuming, and maybe you can educate us, that things are as bad up in your neck of the woods as it were in Minnesota.
yeah, so I always like to start. So my name is Randy Anderson, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is I haven't had to use any alcohol or drugs or mind or mood-altering substances since January 9, 2005. And really, because of my recovery, I've been able to do, really incredible stuff. I get to travel around my state training everyone and anyone how to use the medication called naloxone, also known as Narcan, which is the medication needed to reverse an opioid overdose. And I literally do between 15 and 20 of those trainings all over the state every month. And it is a national epidemic. And I will say, we're not nearly as bad as Florida, so I'm going to start with that. As far as the death rate goes, I don't know your exact numbers in Florida. I know you guys are high on the list. We're fortunate here in Minnesota. We're low on the list. We're 40th on the national list for states as far as deaths goes. In 2017, we had 694 drug overdoses. 401 of those were from opioids. So
was that in the whole state?
What? Yeah, the whole state.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think last year we had just about that many in Palm Beach County alone, which is where I'm located. Yeah.
Right. I always say we're fortunate here. People not only complain about our horrible weather and call us the frozen tundra, but they also complain how super liberal we are and how high our taxes are and all that stuff. Although I think because of some of those reasons, that's probably why we have a good social service system and we have better resources, and our death rates are lower because of that stuff. I know people complain about it. I don't always agree with all the liberal views, and I always look at myself as neither a Republican or a liberal. I try to play nice with both parties.
You're just a guy out there trying to save people.
Yeah, right. I'm so tired. Why I started doing this work, when I took this, so for this, I'm currently the overdose prevention manager for the Steve Rumler Hope Network, a big long name. So Steve Rumler died from an opioid overdose in 2011, and his parents started this organization, and I got involved in 2014. And I was a volunteer, a board member, and now I'm an employee. And I'm an employee because, honestly, a year ago in February, I got to a boiling point in my life where I'm sick and tired of being notified of people's deaths. Facebook messages, tweeters, all that stuff, LinkedIn messages, any way you could imagine to get notified about a death, which I'm sure you're familiar with. I've been notified. And you know what? It came to a boiling point where I said, you know what? I have to do more than I'm doing. And I knew the way for me to do that is I'm now approaching 50, a year and a couple months away from 50, but I still have a lot of energy. And I think I can have a significant impact on preventing a lot of those deaths simply by training people how to use naloxone and giving them those tools. To me, that's the easiest first step anyone can take. I don't care who you are, is to know what that is and know how to use it and have it on you at all times.
So are you training like law enforcement and emergency medical technical staff, technicians?
I trained, so yeah, everyone. So I've trained as few as one person in a lobby of a bar one night to as many as 175 at a conference. This morning, I was at one of our largest healthcare facilities in Minneapolis, training their medical scribes, they call it. It's a group that goes around doing rounds with the doctors. They're medical students that are becoming doctors. But I've trained, I mean, I always say my favorite audience to train is law enforcement, only because I was once a client in some of their facilities. So because I am a formerly incarcerated person as well, I can talk more about that in a minute. But yeah, I train paramedics, EMS, law enforcement, healthcare professionals, lay people, using community members, anyone and everyone that anywhere. I don't care who it is. I want everyone to understand what this medication is.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's been going on down here is, we've been making sure that the law enforcement, have access to, to naloxone or Narcan, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I'm interviewing a guy February the 1st. His name is Luis Garcia. You probably, if you Google him, you'll find him. He's a retired. Yeah,
I'm familiar with
the guy took the money he was supposedly going to buy his, his dream car, '69 Camaro, or whatever it was, and went out and spent $40,000 on Narcan. And
story, it's amazing.
Unbelievable, yeah. And I guess the local press down here picked up on it, and his group of folks a bit like you who are going out to spread the word. I mean, they've been inundated with requests for podcasts, and he's really running with this thing. He's making a huge difference. So I mean, what you're doing is really, really important work. I mean, this stuff's life saving.
Yeah, I say why I started doing this as an employee is because, so I'm in recovery. I'm also a licensed alcohol and drug counselor for the state of Minnesota. And honestly, dead people do not recover. So, I mean, that's to me the easiest way to put it. People do not have an opportunity at the gifts that I've been given if they're dead. And one of the ways that we can give them those gifts is by saving their lives. And I don't care. I get sick of people saying, oh, if you're going to give Narcan to people, you'll just enable them to continue to use and all this. You know what? I don't care. Honestly, my goal is to keep people alive. And hopefully something somewhere clicks or triggers them or says, you know what, I'm sick of doing this and I want to try something new. But they can't do that if they're dead.
Yeah, no, listen, I agree with you. I don't know if you know this. Do they have any laws up there that allow for, say, someone to go to court and get a court order and make someone go to treatment? So we've got a couple laws down here in Florida, which is what my law firm uses. I mean, we do nothing but work with people who have addiction to mental illness, but we've got a couple of statutes on the books here that basically allow me to go get a court order, and the order will tell local law enforcement to literally take somebody off the street and take them to a receiving facility. And I know
I'm not as familiar with the law. We do have a commitment law here.
Right.
It's really hard to get with substance use disorder. It's easier with like real
mental illness,
but to convince a court that this person has now overdosed 9 times, and if they overdose again, they might not survive it. We need to commit this person to a treatment program. And we can do it. It's super hard up here to get that accomplished. So.
Yeah, well, I guess we're very blessed down here with the statutes that we have. So let's talk about the whole prison reform thing, because I think I shared with you before we went online. I've got a client right now who's in federal custody, who's in recovery, and I mean he was a former Wall Street guy that absolutely, I mean he got talk about the short end of the stick. They gave him the short end of the stick and then put it where the sun don't shine. They really shafted this guy, and I won't get into the ins and outs of it. It's been well documented. I've talked about it. It's been written about. But one of the things that we're knocking on wood about is hoping we now have this First Step Act under federal law, and I guess once the shutdown ends and we can figure out what the BOP wants to do with it, we're going to hopefully. I mean, we're praying that we can maybe get him some relief and get him out. But I noticed as a young prosecutor back in the early '90s. I noticed very quickly that most of the people in our criminal justice system are either there because they have mental illness or addiction or both, and they have been dealing with these issues for years and years and years, and yet our system just keeps sending them back to jail, sending them back to prison, and they come out worse. So, I mean, let's talk about what you're trying to do in terms of the prison reform up there in Minnesota.
Yeah, so so as a formerly incarcerated person, so I was sentenced as a first-time nonviolent drug offender with no criminal history to 87 months in federal prison, which was literally in 2005 when that happened, I didn't really believe that our country did that to people. I thought, are you kidding me? I mean, I had been allowed to go to treatment while I was on pretrial release. I started to get into recovery. I thought even if I wasn't ready really for recovery at that point, is prison the answer? Isn't more treatment the answer? Right? I mean, we can't. So what we're doing up here, so we're working a lot. So one of our top priorities, so you guys did something that we've been trying to do for 12 years, restore the vote to those felons that are living in our communities. That was like, thank you guys. I mean, my God, Florida was like, when that happened, we were all up here cheering. And we know some of that work, and we're not trying to take credit for it. We know some of that started up here years ago, which is we started that initiative. We're on our 12th year of Restore the Vote, and we're still not sure if we'll even get it done this year with a cooperative legislation that we have, only because we have now our House is controlled by the Democrats now. Our Senate is controlled by the Republicans. We're the only split legislation in the country. And then we have a Democratic governor and lieutenant governor. So we're optimistic, but it's going to still be our Republican Senate is still going to be a big, hard push, because they just still believe that part of your sentence is your probation time, right? So in Minnesota, although we're one of the lower incarcerating states for as far as the length of time we incarcerate people, we are, I mean, literally, I think we're the second or third highest in the country for probation periods. So in lieu of sending someone to prison, we will, without question, give them a 20-year probation sentence. And then tell them they have to have a job, they have to have housing, they have to do all this, they have to pee in the cups. But by the way, you can't vote. So you get to pay taxes and you get to pay into this system, but you don't really have any say of how those tax dollars get spent. So, I mean, it's the old Boston Tea Party. We say taxation without representation. And so hopefully that's one of our big initiatives this year. I mean, it has been like the Minnesota Second Chance Coalition. I sit as a board member, and that's been a top priority of ours for now, like I said, our 12th year. So, I mean, I'm optimistic maybe this will be the year that will get it done. But we're also working, we are, by the way, a supporter. So we signed on as a supporter of the First Step Act. We have our founder, Sarah Walker, who's awesome. She started the Second Chance Coalition. She is also on the board for, and I'm going to get the name wrong, but they're a national justice reform organization, and right now it escapes me, Justice Action Network or something like that. I probably got it wrong. But so she asked us to sign on as a local org to support the First Step Act. And actually, so we had a lot of conversations. So people are like, oh, this is what happened in our organization. Like, who really cares? The federal prison population is only 7 or 8% of the entire prison population. What effect, or how could that possibly help anything, right? And I'm like, hold on a second. So as a formerly federally incarcerated person, these programs that they're wanting to implement, if I was still incarcerated, they would directly affect my sentence, right? So how can we say, just because it's a small percentage of the prison population, that we can't support something like this? And this go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, I've spent time visiting clients in the county jail, and I've also spent a lot of time visiting my client who was in the federal, prison down here, and now he's in the prison camp. And I would say to people who make those kinds of comments about, oh, it only affects a few small people, go and see what prison does to a person over a series of years, and then tell me that it's only a small amount of people and who cares. It not only literally sucks the life out of an individual, but it destroys the family unit. And I'm not saying we shouldn't punish people in an appropriate circumstance, but I mean, prison does horrible things to people. It really does. And so, I mean, I applaud what you're trying to do. I mean, and quite frankly, unless you're dealing with a violent felony offender or a habitual felony offender, to me, I mean, to be incarcerating people, we've made a business out of throwing people in prison. I mean, it's good business, but it may be good business for the prisons, but it's lousy business for everybody else who has to pay taxes and support these people when they get out and they don't have the skills necessary to get back into society. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I mean, I've been to the prison and I know what it does to me. I spend 3 hours with my client, who's a friend of mine. It's terrible.
I love hearing. So now hearing you first say in our start of our conversation that you were formerly a prosecutor.
I was.
And then hearing you say what you're just saying now is like, I literally have goosebumps, because we need more people that are prosecutors or former prosecutors to understand exactly what you just said. That our criminal justice system, a mass incarceration debacle, has turned into a warehouse. It's turned into a place where we house We know 80% of the prison population would probably meet the criteria for some type of mental illness or substance use disorder. And then we put them in these places with no services. Like, we just dump them in a facility and expect nothing. I mean, and then we suddenly release them years, whatever later, and we wonder why our recidivism rate is so high, because what did we do for them while they were actually behind bars? I always tell people I became a better criminal if I wanted to be. I never knew how to make meth before I went to prison. I walked out of prison with 3 methamphetamine recipes if I wanted them. How to make, are you kidding me? I was a pretty heavy cocaine user that sold drugs to support a really bad habit that I had. But I was so, again, I was floored that our country, when the words came out of the judge's mouth that Mr. Anderson, I'm sentencing you to 87 months in federal prison, I was just, well, of course it was I always say probably the worst day of my entire life. I just can't believe our country treats people that way. And I'm lucky. So then while I was incarcerated here, all of a sudden I started meeting people that didn't look like me, right? People that didn't have white skin, people of color, indigenous people, especially in the federal system. And they're like, their crimes weren't any different or much different than mine. And yet they were sentenced to 20% more than I was. And I was like, what? Only because they're Black or they're Native American. In Minnesota, we all say Minnesota nice, but do you know that we have some of the highest racial disparities in the country in Minnesota? If you're Black in Minnesota, you're 9 times greater chance of going to jail because of your skin color.
Yeah, it's really terrible. And I had one client who went to prison. He actually ended up in the state penitentiary here in Florida. He had an underlying addiction and mental illness problem. He'd already been to prison once, and interesting enough, we had him in treatment for 9 months. The change was incredible, and ultimately the judge wasn't buying what I was selling, and she sent him back to prison. And he said to us, "You know what? I get better drugs in prison than I do when I'm out on the street. My chances of staying clean when I'm in prison are far smaller than if I'm out and able to have access to resources." So it's not a good situation.
Absolutely. I was in a couple of low security federal prisons. I was in Waseca, which is in southern Minnesota. It's now a women's federal prison, but it was, and literally it was in the middle of a town. And I'm not kidding. Drugs were, it was an old horticulture college, and we lived in dorm rooms that no doors, no fences. The units were locked down, but not the individual rooms. Literally, there were drugs in the next room next to me. The only problem was they were a lot more expensive than they are in the street. But the access to them was way easier than it was on the street to get drugs. So I tell people all the time, I just met with our Hennepin County Sheriff, which is our largest county, our second largest county in Minnesota here, or maybe it's our largest county. And he had reported to me that we met the other day, and they're having 3 to 5 overdoses in the jail in downtown Minneapolis. So drugs are still, it just blows me away. And I hear people say, oh, it was easy because you were in prison, or easy to stay sober because you didn't have the access to the drugs. Bull crap. It's easier. It's just more expensive in jail. That's all.
Right. And I know that, even in the federal prison, there was, a couple of weeks ago, there was a raid before this whole furlough thing started with the government shutdown, and they found guys with drugs, with cell phones, with all kinds of crazy stuff. This stuff gets into our prisons. So, people shouldn't think that just because they're in prison they don't have access to stuff. Like you said, it's more expensive, but they get it if they need it and they want it.
Absolutely.
So go ahead. I'm sorry, Randy.
No, go ahead. You first.
Well, I was going to say, so what is the big change that you guys want to see? Because I think is it the Families Against Minimum Mandatories? Is it FAM, which was the federal sort of not-for-profit that really made this big push for the First Step Act? I think part of their, at least one of the things they wanted to talk about was, I guess, expanding the access to compassionate care, because compassionate care release, like, so for instance, my client needs back surgery. He's been diagnosed with skin cancer, and that stuff will eventually kill him. And he's been told, you need to come, after they took a lump off of his head, you need to come back for more attention. And they're doing nothing with it. If we don't get him out, he will die in prison of cancer. And yet, it's shocking. But I think one of the things it looks like they're trying to expand the definition of compassionate care release, so maybe we can get him in. But it seems to me, unless you're I think they call it on a life-ending trajectory. That's the language I saw in the statute. So in other words, if you're basically terminal or going terminal, yeah, we're interested in talking to you. No guarantees, but we'll talk to you about letting you out. I mean, is that some of the stuff that's going on up in Minnesota with the prison reform?
So our biggest push this year on prison reform, or in our jails and prisons, is mental health access to. We're more so. I think our jails, a lot of our jails, not all of them, have pretty good medical care, or better than average medical care. I shouldn't say pretty good. I should say better than average for most prisons or jails. What we do a really horrible job at is treating people with mental illness and substance use disorder, and I think that's pretty common across the country. So we have NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, Minnesota. Yep. So we're the Second Chance Coalition is partnered this year as one of our biggest partners with NAMI, because we want to push some. They're introducing some really good mental health legislation, which I should have had a copy in front of me so I could be a little bit more detailed about it. I just finished our legislative agenda last night. I've been working all weekend we have our big rally coming up on February 7th, so I'm trying to get all the stuff prepared for that. But yeah, our big push is to support NAMI and their work this year, because truly, we just don't treat people and in Minnesota, even though we have high taxes and I think a better social service system, we still lack on compassionate care in our prison system up here even. I just think I keep thinking about the First Step Act, and the thing about, so it's not, I haven't read the entire bill. It's a pretty huge document, but I've read a lot of it, and there's a lot of critics to it. I know Glenn Martin, who used to be, I don't know if he's still with the Justice Action, out in New York, the Justice Action Network, or I can't remember their name right now. He's been pretty opposed to it. I spoke to him on the phone one day. However, you know what? So there's a reason why this is the way I'm relaying it to people. There's a reason why it's called the First Step Act. So it's something moving the needle in the right direction, right? We haven't had, in the federal system, we haven't had any reform in 3 decades. So if we can do anything, and everybody's shocked this is happening under Trump, and maybe I am too a little bit. However, thank God. I mean, it's like finally we're moving the needle in the right direction, and it's not ideal. This legislation isn't perfect, and there's a lot more work to do. But if we don't start somewhere, we'll never get. And people wanted him not to pass it and whatever, because it gives a little bit too much power, I believe, to the correctional officers themselves, because there's this rating system, and if you get a correctional officer that's racist and doesn't necessarily like black people, that can impact a person's score and how much credit they get for their release. Right. So there are some dangers to the bill, but overall, from what I've understand and talked to people about, there's a lot more good than there is bad. So that's why we supported the bill. So.
Right. Let me change the topic just for a second, because one of the things that we see here in Florida is if you don't have private health insurance or you don't have money, in terms of getting access to treatment, really difficult. And I've had this conversation with Dave Ehrenberg, who's our state attorney down here, a great guy, former state senator. So I don't, you mentioned the higher tax up in Minnesota, but I mean, we get calls from people and they say, and I ask them, do you have health insurance? Do you have, do you have the ability to pay for treatment? Because nobody has a savings account where they plan for their child to have an addiction issue or mental illness, right? You just don't plan for that kind of stuff. I mean, you who does, right? But if they, getting them into a county facility is, there's a line out the door. I mean, those guys are overworked and underpaid. So, I mean, what is it like up there in terms of if you don't have the finances, getting into treatment up there?
So we have a pretty good. So again, we're quite liberal in some aspects, and we have what's called medical assistance. So a person can literally come here and be a resident, like in Hennepin County, for 3 days, and they're eligible for medical assistance. In fact, I think if they're only here 24 hours, they get the medical part, and then you have to be here 3 days to get the cash, the $97 a month that they give you, or $92 a month they give you. So, but we also have a unique system here. So we have a fund we call it the CCTDF, the Consolidated Something Treatment Fund, and everything's an acronym, and I can never remember what all the acronyms stand for. However, so it's paid into through our tax system, and it's a designated fund just for substance use disorder. So if a person doesn't have private insurance, the first thing we do is try to get them in. So we might sign them up for UCare or Medica or some type of healthcare plan, health partners, who knows, whatever. And if they don't pay for the treatment, we can access the consolidated treatment fund up here to help offset that cost. So literally, so when I went to treatment in 2004, now this is a while ago, I started out in an outpatient treatment. I relapsed. I brought drugs to the treatment center. I smoked crack in the basement of their sober home. I got kicked out. I got sent back to jail. But they let me come back, and then I had to do the residential program. I was in that treatment program for about 10 months, and I didn't pay a dime out of my pocket to get help.
That's great.
Not my family didn't pay a dime. That was my life has been saved because I had access to treatment and it didn't cost me anything. So we do have, again, we're higher taxes, but we have a really good, I think, access for people to have access to services, and it's not a hardship for them, or they have to second mortgage their house or cash out their retirement fund. Or I hear this all the time. I mean, obviously I deal with people all over the country, and I do hear the horror stories of, I just had a mom, she's sending her kid to ninth treatment. Now he's going to Arizona, and they've literally spent their entire retirement fund.
I've seen that before. Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
What are they going to do in 8 to 10 years when they want to retire? They have no money left. They spent it all entirely. They want to save their kid's life. And yes, my gosh, but the family, their life, that family is, even if their son finds recovery and gets sober, their family is destroyed. I mean,
that's why that's why they call it a family disease. And I think that people who aren't dealing with this issue, they don't get it. I even get calls from families there. I don't understand, why can't she stop or he stop? Well, I mean, okay, you got to understand they're dealing with a brain disease. It's kind of like, addiction is a disease of the brain. Cancer is a disease of the body. I mean, tell somebody who's got cancer, stop having cancer. I mean, if they could, they would. So a couple of quick things I want to run by you, because we're sort of running out of time here with the Zoom. Number one, are you guys having issues with fentanyl up there? So one of the things that's killing a lot of the kids down here is the coke and the heroin, and even the marijuana is laced with fentanyl. And one strong hit of that, and you're dead. Are you guys having that issue up there?
All of our street drugs are adulterated or tainted now with fentanyl of some sort. There's no safe street drugs in Minnesota anymore. None. We haven't seen the marijuana yet, but we have the cocaine and the methamphetamine are definitely tainted with fentanyl. Yeah,
the other thing they're having, so the kids now are smoking, and I don't even know what you call this thing. I had an expert. We had somebody who came in last week who talked to us. He's with the sheriff's office down here, and he knows more about the street drugs than anybody else. But the kids are now smoking this little thing. It looks almost like a flash drive.
Or vapor, the Juul, or whatever it's called.
That's it. It's like it looks like a flash drive that you'd put into your computer. And what I guess it comes originally with tobacco, and either they're taking it out or they're smoking it, and then they're injecting a type of
liquid.
Thank you.
Yeah. They're putting a different liquid in there. A lot of times it's a dab or wax at high
yes,
potency THC.
That's what he said it was.
And then a lot of times that is also now tainted or laced with, we hear fentanyl and carfentanil. So I've heard just in Minnesota the other day, I heard a report that someone was smoking meth out of one of those Juul devices. So they're figuring how to use these things to use other drugs in as well. So
right.
That's a huge problem here as well. One of the high schools I work with, they're putting in metal detectors because they're trying to keep the kids from bringing vaping devices to school.
Yeah, I mean, what's the other thing that we're seeing down here is that, it's almost like the legislation can't keep up with the drug. So, something comes in from China, the legislator, outlaws it, and then what they do is they change they change the formula, and now that particular, analog of the drug, it's no longer illegal.
Absolutely, same thing here.
Crazy stuff.
Especially with our K2, the synthetic marijuana spice. They're constantly. We had a rash of overdoses late in the year. 92 overdoses in like a 48-hour period from a K2 product.
Crazy. So I got a question. One of the other things that we've had here, besides the revolving door of the courthouse, we have the revolving door of the emergency room. We get people coming in. Let's say, somebody got called, the police and paramedics got called to the scene of an overdose. They hit them with 1, 2, 3 doses of Narcan. They take him to the ER to get them stabilized. And then, they're going right out into the parking lot and doing it again.
Out the door.
So, and we have statutes on the book down here that would prevent that. We're not using them, but that's maybe a topic for a different day, and it's a discussion I've had with our local law enforcement guys. But are you having that issue also up in Minnesota?
We are. We've now, many of our larger hospital systems have implemented a new system just recently in the last few months where they're embedding drug and alcohol counselors in their emergency rooms, and they're doing assessments. So they're no longer keeping the clients or the patients just for 2 hours. They're keeping them for 4 hours. And that extra 2 hours is so they can call in a substance use disorder professional, and they can do an assessment, and they can start them on something. So sometimes maybe Suboxone or Vivitrol or Methadone or maybe an outpatient treatment program, but they get services right away. We have 3 of our largest healthcare systems that just started doing that in the last few months, which is really, again, I have goosebumps because usually they stabilize them for a couple hours, maybe give them an naloxone kit, and then send them back out the door. And then they die just within 24 hours.
Crazy.
So we've had some great progress in the last few months on that topic itself.
Yeah, we're starting to get a little more switched on down here. So in Palm Beach County, where I am, we just hired a guy. His name is John Hewlick. He's our drug czar, and he worked for Governor Chris Christie for many years. And John is a great guy. He has a kid in recovery. He's just really switched on, and he really gets it. And one of the things that he opened my eyes to, and I think he's doing a great job of opening up the eyes of our local politicians, is the idea that, even if you get somebody clean, if they don't have that ongoing support system, like access to a house or a home or somewhere to live, access to employment, access to medical care, then their chances of relapsing are significantly higher. And so we're trying to make sure that we spend our tax dollars down here much wiser. We're getting switched on, but again, it's.
Well, we know the Surgeon General said every dollar spent on treatment saves us $7 in criminal justice cost and $4 in healthcare cost. Or maybe I have those, maybe it's 7 and 4 the other way, but whatever, it's saving us $11. So why are we not trying to save ourselves money by providing treatment for these people, right?
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
And also the aftercare, that's a big part of it, just having that support system there. Because if you're going to get somebody clean and then put them out in the street, what do you think's going to happen to them? They're going to relapse.
From detox to sober living, we aren't providing, and even Minnesota, when we have a good system, we're not doing it. We could be doing way better. But yes, there's that whole continuum of care that as a country, we suck.
Yeah, I know that, there's, I think we need some federal legislation, but I guess once, at the end of the day, the states are going to have to be responsible for themselves. And if, Uncle Sam wants to pony up a few dollars to help things, I'm all for it.
We did so Minnesota got, and you guys probably got more because you're higher on the list, but we just got $17 million from the new grant cycle, the SOR grant it's called. And so we're currently applying for the Steve Rummer Hope Network. We're going to be applying, there's $1 million for naloxone. So I think we're asking for like $500,000 again. We spent $300,000 in the last 23 months on the grant cycle. I think we're going to ask for more, but yeah, the federal government's finally doing something about the opioid epidemic. It's too little, too slow. I'm not going to say too late because it's never too late, but too little, too slow. I would say there's a plane crashing in our country every day and it's killing 192 people. And what are we doing to stop that plane from crashing? Not enough.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. So I got a question. People want to reach out to you, especially if they're in the Midwest, and get access to resources. How do they get in touch with you?
So my email is a good way. So I'm going to give you my second chance email. So it's Randy Anderson, all one word, SON at mnsecondchance.org. And that's probably the easiest way. I'm on Facebook. I have 4,000 friends on Facebook and I don't know 3,500 of them, but I use it as a networking tool. So I'm always open to social media. You can Facebook message me. I'm good with that. I tweet, I have an Instagram account. I do all that stuff. But yeah, I think, and the best way is probably just my email or, really anything, any way you see me out there, just reach out. I don't really care. If I think you're someone I don't want to associate with, I just won't respond. But it's hard sometimes to figure that out. But.
Okay, because you talked about a lot of different subjects today. So I'm just wondering if there's a mum or a dad out there who's in your neck of the woods, if they just have questions about who can they call to get their kid into treatment. I think you'd be
I have a great friend up here that is, I'm pretty good with the system, but her kid's been to treatment like 9 times and she knows how to nap. So I turn to her when I need help, like Pam, her name's Pam. I said, Pam, how do I do this? She also runs the only true family support network in Minnesota. She's an awesome lady, but yeah.
All right, great. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. If they need information about how to get in contact with you or just about what we do down here, they can find us on Facebook under Mark Giaster. There's the Drug and Alcohol Attorneys page on Facebook. There's YouTube. There's the Drug and Alcohol Attorneys website, so it's drugandalcoholattorneys.com. They can email me, mark@drugandalcoholattorneys.com, or they can call me, 561-419-6095. Hey, Randy, I really appreciate you coming on. It was a pleasure to meet you. And would you do me a favor? I know that we're connected on Facebook now. So if there's anything that you want to share, send it to me. I'll share it. I'll be happy to share it, on any of my social media platforms, because I think you're doing a lot of good work, and I know you're trying to help people, and I applaud you for that. And hopefully you don't have a really bad winter either.
So we're waiting for there's going to be a blizzard eventually. We'll probably be in April when everyone thinks we're done with it, but regardless. So thank you for having me on today. I get down to Florida every once in a while if I ever get
Call
down
me.
there.
Will you call me?
Absolutely.
Let me take you to dinner or lunch. And I also want you to meet my colleague Audrey, who does our guardianship work. And, I'll hook you up with anybody you need down here. I'll be happy to do it for you, okay?
I love it. It's always good to have another resource in Florida, because honestly, I'm scared to death of telling anyone. I have a few friends in Florida that I go to, but I'm always scared. Like, no, I don't know. I mean, because I see all the media too, and it scares the crap out of me.
There are some really good treatment providers. The bad ones either went broke because they were cheating, or they got arrested and they were out of business. And what we've left with is a core group of really good treatment providers, and they all seem to be doing really good work, and they seem to care about helping people. So.
Well, if I need your help, I'll reach out for
your guy.
sure, because I get questions about Florida all the time.
Send them my way. I'll happily answer them for them.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. All right, my friend. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show.